Alright, so let's take a look at an example where we cannot factor. So what happens? Well, there's no problem. We're just going to use other ways to get our roots, and the one that you are most familiar with is the quadratic formula. So that means we need to know what a is, and in this case 1, and b is -2, and c is -4. So let's plug that into our quadratic formula, which is -b, so -2 plus or minus b squared, so -2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is -4, divided by 2 times a, which is 1. So that gives us minus -2, which is +2. Simplify which in the square root bracket, which is 20, divided by 2 times 1, which is 2, and so we find that x is equal to 3.2, and x is equal to -1.2. Okay, so we've got less than or equal to 0. All right, that means below x-axis and on the x-axis. X-axis where y is less than or equal to 0. So let's do a sketch of our graph. We have roots at -1.2 and at 3.2. We have a parabola that opens up because a is positive, so we graph a parabola that opens up. And we want to include our roots because we need our points that are on the y-axis, so we include -1.2 and 3.2 as part of our solution. And we want the region which is below, so we graph and shade that region below. And so you can see that we want the values between -1.2 and 3.2. Okay, and don't forget, because our original inequality is less than or equal to, we include equal to in our solution. Okay, there's some practice problems below. I'm not going to do the first 3. You can do them on your own. Here are your solutions, so you can practice them and see if you get those answers. And I want to take a look at D and E and a third one, which I will call F, which is x squared plus 4 is less than or equal to 4x. Okay, now D and E are related. Okay, notice they're the same inequality. The only difference is that on the first one we want what's below the x-axis, and on the second one we want what's above the x-axis. Now, neither one of these is factorable. Okay, so we're going to sketch our graph using a different method. And I know that this is a parabola where the vertex is at 0 and -4, okay, because it's in the form of y equals a times x squared minus q. Okay, so we don't have a p-value. P is 0, and in this case q is -4, so our vertex is at 0 and -4. Now our a is negative, which means we have a parabola that opens down. So when we sketch this, we have a parabola that has a vertex at 0 and -4, and it opens down. Now if you take a look over here, we want below the x-axis, right, where y is less than 0. Notice our whole graph is below the x-axis, so we're considering the whole region. Okay, so everything is below the x-axis, which means that our solution set is all real numbers. So x is all real numbers. Okay. All right, so what happens to our solution when we want what is above the x-axis? Okay, well, we already know what the graph looks like. We know we have a vertex at 0 and -4. Okay, but because we're concerned with the region above the x-axis, we don't have anything there. So if you're thinking that our solution is no solution, you are correct. And remember, you can write it like this. Okay, so let's take a look at f. We need to put it in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c is less than or equal to 0, so we need to move the 4x to the left. It becomes negative. Okay, so this means below x-axis and on x-axis. Right? We want where y is less than or equal to 0. So let's factor. And the factors of 4 that will give you 4 are 2 and 2. We want minus 2 and minus 2. And notice we've got two equal factors, so our root is 2. All right, so let's graph this. Here's our x-axis. Our root is at 2. We have a parabola that opens up because a is positive. And remember, we want to include as part of our solution whatever is on the x-axis, so in this case 2. And notice that no part of the parabola is below the x-axis, so our solution region is just going to be where x is 2, and so we write that our answer, our solution is x is equal to 2. Okay, and that concludes this discussion.